welcome to the very first episode of Mini Make, where we are going to be making these toy lightsabers in celebration of International Star Wars Day. And so the first thing I did here was design and 3D print the hilt of the lightsaber. Now if you guys want to download these files, there'll be a link in the video description down below. We're going to start by assembling the child-size version. And so the hilts print in two separate halves and they fit together on the flat faces. Now you can simply epoxy or glue them together with some hot glue, or optionally you can fasten them together with some number 6 by 1/2 inch long screws, of which you can see there's provisions for those screws on the parts. Now if you are using the screws, you can pre-thread them just using the screw itself to cut the threads before assembling the two halves. And so you can go ahead and do that and then back the screws out, then put the two halves back together, and it just makes assembling them a lot easier. In my case, I'm going to be using glue and screws to fasten the two halves together, so I'm going to dab some glue onto one of the faces, squish the two halves together, and then I'm going to drop those number 6 screws into place, and I should be able to thread those in very easily because I had already pre-cut those threads. Next, I'm going to grab my pool noodle and cut it to length. I find that an 18-inch length works really well for these mini lightsabers, but you can experiment with any length that you want. Now the inner diameter of the pool noodle that works really well with my design is about 3/4 of an inch, or about 19 millimeters, all the way up to about 7/8 of an inch, or about 22 millimeters. The foam is pretty forgiving to work with, so anything on the small side and it should bite right into it. And so now we can start threading our hilt into the pool noodle, and I designed this thing with a right hand thread, so righty-tighty, and you can thread it in about 75% of the way. Then you can grab your glue gun, dab a small amount of glue in that last remaining thread, then tighten it down the rest of the way, and that pool noodle should be very secure. And that's all there is to it. Make sure you make a second one so you can have some epic lightsaber battles, and you have an excuse to safely bash your friends and children over the head.